Hi, I'm Webb, founder and CEO of Flowdrop. I'm here today with another guide for Flowdrop Basics. Today we're going to be going over how to use the AI chat, how to get the most out of it in Flowdrop. We're going to be going over the assistant, we're going to be going over the AI copilot on the canvas, and you're going to be basically a prompting master by the end of this tutorial, right? So without further ado, let's just get started with the assistant, right? When you land in the app Flowdrop, you'll see this text window. It'll ask you, what do you want to build? It's an open-ended question, but the idea is that if there's some software-based task that you want to automate in your business or in your personal life, you can go ahead and describe it here. And I will let you know that all the extra details that you're going to have that you want to accomplish are going to really help in terms of this AI assistant to be able to make a practical workflow to be able to solve your problem. And the flip side of that is if you start a little bit more rough and a little bit more sketched out as opposed to more explicit, right, then you will have a little bit of an easier time dialing it in as you move along, right? So if you have a really clear picture of what you want, then be as explicit as possible. But if you have, more of a general idea of what you want, maybe you have a couple of apps that you use and you want to go from one app to another, or from like your email to another app, you can kind of wire that up and then go from there as you start to develop more of a picture for what kind of task you want to accomplish, right? We have a really simple use case that we're going to explore here. We have a test email list that's in a Google spreadsheet. You can take a look at that here. It's just, me and John, my CTO's emails on a Google sheet. And then we're gonna make a workflow that's gonna send some emails out, right? So you'll head over to the assistant, you type out, I want to make a workflow that generates some personalized emails for my email list to explain what value they can get from Flowdrop. All right, so that's pretty much it. Just go ahead and kick off this generation. So now the assistant is under the hood going and generating this initial workflow that we have, right? And it's probably going to, okay, so you see it's going to read this email list for each process for each user, and basically like each row, it's going to generate a personalized email, then it's going to send that email, right? So just go ahead and you see that each one of these nodes has a little connection point. I actually have already all of my integrations already connected. This should now go ahead and send a personalized email to all of those emails. You can go into the LLM prompt. Basically, by double clicking on any node, you can see the contents of it. You'll notice like a prompt here. You're an expert marketer, write a highly personalized warm welcome email in visually appealing HTML format to a new user based on their interests. HTML, if you're not familiar with it, is just like programming language where you can make a little bit more visually appealing email copy as opposed to just like static text. All these purple references are basically references from values from other nodes, right? So these for each references are each payload that this for each node gets for every single one of these emails that's going to read from this Google list. And we actually haven't put our Google sheet in here. If you go ahead and pop in to this thing, you can wire it up. We have our test email list. Go ahead and select that. Sheet 1 is actually what it's already called. You may have to change the name of the sheet to whatever sheet you're working with, but that's the gist of it. So we can run a little test here and make sure that it gets the right output. You can see here we got my email, my personal email, we got my business email, we've got John's business email. Okay, so we got the right payload there. And this was all just in one chat, right? And you can see, if I had hypothetically in my assistant page said that I wanted to reference this spreadsheet ID, right? It would have basically nailed that. I could have just asked for it to, wire up this particular spreadsheet ID, and that was really the only modification that I had to do to get this up and running, right? And if I were to just run this workflow, I'm not gonna spam our emails just yet. but it would essentially send an email to me. It would send an email to my business email as well, and then it would send a personalized email to John. Each email would be, it wouldn't be like this templated copy and paste email. It would be a little bit personalized, right? And you can see how, if I had like a description column here, if I had a little bit of background information, you could see how you could make it even more deeply personalized, right? Like maybe I could say, likes cats. Me and my wife, we have a couple cats. I could say, runs a AI automation business. You can put all kinds of personal details in here to give the workflow a little bit more in terms of how it can actually go ahead and make effective emails, right? So the next thing that we're going to go over is this Webby AI copilot chat, right? So you'll notice that as soon as you open up a workflow, we have it so it automatically pops up in this chat, right? Have a chat history in there. We have a couple different buttons down on here. You have like send message button, tell Webby what you want to build. Basically, we can keep upgrading with this chat. So you'll notice this context button down here. This basically lets you choose a specific node that you want to actually modify, right? So let's say that I wanted to make the LLM prompt that generates the actual email. I wanted to make it a little bit different, right? So I could select that node right here, and let's say I want to assume that all of the email recipients are employees of Flowdrop. Can we make the prompt representative of that and make it more compelling with that information? This is just a simple way that you can edit a specific node and put a little bit of guardrails on the specific chat that you're going to do. So while this is generating, we'll go over this little default button here. It says default right now. That's basically like the default model that's selected. So that's going to be the cheapest model. If you have a paid plan, you can get access to premium chat models. That's going to give you access to smarter, higher cost chats to upgrade your workflow. So let's say you're working with something more complex, or cost is not as much of a factor to you. You can actually upgrade your model, and you'll notice that this number changes over here. We'll go over that in just a second, but you can upgrade your model, and you'll know that you'll get a little bit of a more premium outcome if you're working with a more experienced and slightly more intelligent copilot, right? I wouldn't say that you necessarily need to do that if you're working with simple workflows, or if your use case isn't that complicated. But hypothetically speaking, it can really help things along if you got a lot of nodes, or if you're working on something highly technical. So that pretty much goes over the model selector. And then we have one other indication here. This approximately 2 credits, that's just an estimate for how much the chat costs. So you'll notice down here in the bottom left on the billing section, we have a number of credits. All right, that's going to be it for today's guide. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Flowdrop Basics. We'll see you on the next one.